Hello everybody, my name is Jimmy and welcome back to Jimmy Does Knitting. This is my mostly knitting podcast where I pick a topic and we go from there. I am Jimmy Does Knitting on Ravelry, YouTube, Ko-Fi, and Instagram. So if you're interested in that, please hit me up there. And I have patterns for sale on Ravelry, and I have all of the show notes in the bottom. So if you need more detail on the items, which some of it is going to be light on detail because I don't remember everything, then you can check it out there. So there's that, there's chapters. We're all good to go. Let's get into it. Today, we will be talking about my stash busting adventures as of July 2024. But before we get to that, let's talk about what I am wearing. I am wearing my RYO sweater by someone. It's really cool. It's a saddle shoulder sweater. I don't know if you can see the shoulders, but it has this, what they call a caterpillar motif in the front. I think it's quite nice. I've been thinking about this a lot lately, but I don't really wear it. I find the yarn to be a bit coarse. I've, rewashed it, I've soaked it in conditioner, and it's just not like my favorite yarn, and I think that's a shame because this is a really beautiful sweater, but I don't wear it as much. So that's the tea on that. But I felt like it was cute today. I felt like it was on my mind, so let's go for it. So what have I been up to? So stash busting, here's my theory on it, is I'm not going to use only limiting to my stash because then you have really odd quantities. I believe in supplementing my stash. So you'll see later on where I've supplemented and where I've not. But if I can finish a project by buying something that's maybe €5 more or something like that to round off a yarn amount so I can use all of it and get all of it out, I'm more inclined to do that. So that's the general approach that we have to it. First ones, let's start with the mittens. The mittens are from this book. This is an English translation. It's Nordic Knits with Berge. I really enjoy this. I've knit through a lot of this stuff. He has really great accessories and things like that. So I have knit the Flaffengenser from him. I think I've knit all of the hats, and I've started on the mittens because I think Nordic mittens are adorable. These ones, I have to make sure that I'm showing you these correctly. So this is the first pair I did. So good. These are the half star mittens, and they have this cute little thumb with a more basic pattern on the palm, and then they have the half star thing, which if you put them together, they match and look like a cute little cuff. I think that this is a really nice one. They fit. I think that these are a little small for me, but I enjoyed making them. I think they're cute. I bought this yarn. This is Mondim by Rosa Pumar. I bought it in their store not last March, but the March before, with the intention of making some Nordic mitts, and I never did until now. And I'm very pleased with this. The Mondim is really good yarn for color work, also just good to be held on its own, but I thought it made some beautiful mitts. And then I went and I made these, which are the Sunnfjord, I want to say, and these, I will tell you what, I need a pair of these in black. Of course I have enough fingering weight blacks in my stash, but these are really cute. I think they're more geometric than most traditional Nordic mittens, and I really enjoy it, and I think they fit me well, and I would be very curious about how this goes when I'm biking along. If the problem with gloves in Amsterdam is because you're biking, it's the wind. So, and you're also getting rained on and stuff. So if these are windproof-ish, then maybe I would be inclined to wear them more. I really like them. I think they're nice and geometric. I think they're cute. And I have some black and gray I think I would do because it's me in my stash that I would make these with. But I really like them. Do you see it? It has a little thumb thing. Now, the one thing I want to discuss, and I have no idea what I did. This one, I swear, was done with the lighter color being held dominant, but you see that like the tops of these two match, but then this one, it looks like the white color was more dominant, and I'm not exactly sure how I went about doing that, like change the color dominance, because what I do is I hold them both in my left hand, but the one closest to me is the more dominant color. So I thought I did that for everything, and maybe I knit funny or something. I'm not really quite sure. Because you can see, specifically on this one, you see how the red's more dominant and the light one's more dominant? And I don't know. I thought it was initially because I like knit up to here and then left it in my bag for a while. I also reversed the light and the dark on this one. I don't really know if it made any more difference or anything. The reason is because I wanted to knit with some red. I've been having issues with my first chakra, let's say. So I wanted to get some like red knitting in to strengthen it. That being said, let me get into something else. What am I gonna? We'll go red again. I'll be right back. I was watching Trivial Knits, who is an excellent podcaster. She lives in LA and she just does like a lot of accessories and stuff, and sometimes they look really fun, and I think that like it's an interesting perspective on how her practice is going and stuff, and I really enjoy it. And she does not shy away from easy things just because they're accessories. And she did this one thing a couple of times that I was like, I need to look into this. And it's the Lindal series by Woldten, Woldten. Once again, links are below. And there's like a Lindal Torkle, I think. I have no idea what language this is. I'm assuming it's Scandinavian. And it's like a mini scarf, I guess. And so I had a vision of a red mini scarf with like the contrast colors being like a Zauberball spin cycle. It ended up being Zauberball because that was what's in my price range, and we'll discuss. But I really wanted to do like this red. This is Holst Supersoft in Poppy. I have a bunch of this. I have like almost 2 of these. I mean, use this as the contrast color. It barely used any. Maybe like 10, maybe 15 grams. It was whatever. And this was the stash part that I was busting. So unsuccessful stash bust, because I also purchased this Zauberball, which I thought would have a lot more of these, I can't really say, but like these red tones and stuff. When it was all skeined up, like right here, when it was all skeined up, it looked a lot more red before I got into it. So I thought that red tones plus this like would be really cool. I should have probably gone for a different color, but either way, this is my first time using this stuff. Zauberball, just in case you don't know, is 100 grams. It's superwash merino fingering weight. This is Zimtschnecke, and it is, yeah, it's like a spin cycle, color fade, marled sort of yarn. So not usually my main thing, but I thought with this design that it would be really cool. So let's see it. And this is the final scarf. It's quite, I wouldn't say large, but like it's hard to show on screen. But you can see what I mean for the color changeness of this. Or maybe I could have gone for one of those cakes that's sort of like a light red to a dark red inside. I'm not sure. Anyway, it's too late. I did this. So you can see how the color change really makes a difference. Yes, there are mistakes in this. Don't look too close. But I thought it was really nice. And with proper blocking, it softened up. So I used a 3.5 millimeter needle. This is in garter stitch, which I know balloons a little bit. And it's supposed to be a drapey thing, so it suggests a 3.5 millimeter needle. I used it for this. Generally, I probably would not knit a fingering weight held single on anything above 3.25, but we went with it because that's what was in the pattern. And once you figured out like the rhythm of it, it was actually pretty cool. There's some definite mistakes in here, like I said, but what I did is I messed up a couple times because it's wrap and turns, and I didn't know wrap and turns. So I did German short rows, but because the short rows were a little different and there was a lot of counting and stuff, like I got off pretty quickly, and you can see on, I think it's this end, it's a little wonky because of it, but I taught myself wrap and turns. I used the tutorial from Very Pink Knits, so I can do wrap and turns now. I would suggest for something like this, it's fine, but for like a garment, I think a German short row has a much neater finish, but for this, it didn't really matter. And then because I used Holst, I soaked this in dish soap. That's the way to get Holst super soft, is you soak it in dish soap, and it becomes super soft. It's really nice. It's great to wear. Most people don't get the whole thing out. The deal is the whole super soft is it's coated in lanolin, which is part of the reason why it's so affordable, which is like grease and spinning oil and stuff like that. The yarn's not like fully washed like most of the skeins that you have. So when you block this, you really have to go and like get that harsh soap in. Don't do your eucalyptus, don't do your regular wool wash, go in with dish soap, and then like either rinse it a couple times or leave it there for a while so it really like eats away at that, and then you will have this beautiful drapey soft fabric, which is really nice. So that is what I have to say about that. It's not my favorite color combo if I'm going to be interested. If I'm going to be honest, especially because a lot of like the blues started showing up, and it was, I guess, like the color change is more blue dominant, and that's not exactly what I wanted, but I think I have enough for one more of these, and I would use a different color. I wouldn't use this red. I'd use something else in my stash to hold with it, which is fine. And I was going to say one more thing. What was it? Oh, the pattern is a bit expensive. It's it cost me €9, I think. And that is a lot for an accessory, but there are 4 different options, and I understand like the math and time and like effort it took to make all of those different options. You have like this that's like this, and then one that's, I think this is the mirrored, there's a non-mirrored version, and then you have like a half a wrap that's like the mirrored and non-mirrored version or something like that. So it took a lot to write this pattern, so that is why the price is the price. And then this was free because it's in my stash. I used it on my Christmas sweater. And then this was, I got a gift certificate to Stephen and Penelope, so I bought this there, and I just paid for the pattern essentially. So that was my Lindal Torkle, this one. Since we just discussed Stephen and Penelope, let's go for a very Stephen and Penelope sort of intentional knit. They have their own yarn range, West Wool, and what they did at the end of last year, beginning of this year, is they changed up their yarn formula. It had like a mix of Tessel in there, and now it's just merino, and they have a different sourcing and supply chain and all of that sort of thing. And then they also shifted their color range. So they were trying to like pass off all of this yarn, and I got a bag of yarn. A bag of their Tandem, which is their DK, for like super cheap in this yellow that was discontinued. I got 10 skeins. I was going to make a sweater with it, which did not happen because I didn't like it with that size of yarn. Anyway, the point is I have this yarn that was basically free from Stephen and Penelope, and now I have no idea what to do with it. But I sometimes just need something super simple, super quick that I can do with. And I get in between projects sometimes just because yarn takes like 2 weeks to arrive usually because our post is not great. And if that's the case, then I just need something from stash that like is not important and I don't really need to concentrate on, and it will take me through the like one day where I have like a lull. So I have made the Boneyard Shawl. This is one of his early patterns, and it's a free pattern on both their website and Ravelry, I think. I need to trim these ends. There are long strings. You can even see it. Who am I? This is terrible. Okay, that needs to be done before this goes back. But anyway, it's a super simple triangular shawl. It has this repeating motif. It's super simple. This is Westwool Tandem in the color Edam. And I think that I used everything pretty much to pattern. It requested like a 4.5 millimeter needle, which is very loose for DK, but like it's not like super dense fabric by any means, but it's a shawl, so like that was fine. And it ate up like, I don't know, 2 balls of yarn, something like that. So it ate up a decent amount of the yarn. I think I did this in like 3 or 4 days. It was super quick, so I'm not mad at it. The one modification that I did, I'm going to make again on other things, is this strip. So this strip was supposed to be however many rows and then an I-cord border, and I do not have an I-cord border. What I like to do as a bind off on garter rows, because it's both stretchy and I think that it looks like the stitch texture looks like a garter stitch texture, so I like it, is I do an Icelandic bind off for the garter, and I just knit a couple of extra rows for the garter so the stripes were a little bit more of the same now that I took out the I-cord and then I did the Icelandic bind off. And that's pretty much it. It was quick, it was easy, it's a great like first knit. You can get some like cheap yarn, get your drops, Daisy or whatever, and this will be fine. I really do enjoy this yarn, and yeah, it's really big. It's really big, but it's a good knit. Hopefully somebody will want this one day. Oh, this is a good way to talk about my gift box. For those of you that don't know, I often knit what I want to knit, and that is great. And I don't always wear everything or use everything because I wear black sweaters all the time, and that's about it. So unless it's like black, I'm really not going to use it. But I have all this other yarn. I like to play with things. I like to explore new techniques, new different things. So I knit what I want, and then when I'm done with it, I put it in a gift box. And so that is my gift knitting for other people. So sometimes it's a whole sweater. Sometimes I usually like to make a sweater with somebody in mind. But sometimes it's just like stuff like this, or the mittens. Once I get enough mittens, I'll be like, hey, does anybody want some mittens? And I'll give them away to people I know and stuff like that. So this is one of those type of projects where I knit it. It's great. It used up some stash, and now it's going on a gift thing. If somebody wants it, then they can have it by all means. So that way I don't gift knit in the fall, winter, because people like 2 or 3 months of their knitting life is just like gift knitting for others because they can, and I don't know. That doesn't jive with me. That's not how I want to use my time. So that is what I do. I have a gift box with things in it. Okay, I'm looking at the ground. We have one more finished object, and we will then move on to whips. But first, the finished object. This you've seen, but I'm counting it in my stash busting video because I got rid of all of the black fluff in my stash, which is exactly what I wanted. I do not want mohair coming in really anymore. And I had some Surrey alpaca that I bought at a closing of a yarn store, but it was 2 different dye lots, and it wasn't really enough to make anything with, and the dye lots are noticeably different in color. I combined all of them, all my mohair, fluff, and alpaca, into this. And this is a really easy pattern by Rose Knitwear, and it's just a set-in sleeve. It's a very like feminine pattern that I modified slightly, and I've talked about how I've modified it before, but let's just do a quick recap. It's knit bottom up with a set-in sleeve construction, so I followed the circumference of like a size 2 or whatever I am, and the length I just made up for the body. But then when I split for the armholes, I knit like a size 2 for the stitch and like a size 6 for the row, because that would get me the depth that I wanted. And so I did that, and then I also modified the sleeves. They had like a cute little like feminine bell sleeve that was oversized. I shortened them a bit. I took out the bell. and I like redid the sleeve math, and then I did the same stitch for size 2 and row for size 6, I hope, for the sleeve cap, so that way it actually fits. And I think it's great. It's really like queer and nice and like something that I'd wear in like Pride to be like sexy but warm. And yeah, I mean, I really like it. I've worn it actually a couple of times. I don't know if you can see the different dye lots here happening, but I can. Even like, especially right here, I used mohair, which was considerably thinner than the alpaca, which was this part. So I did this. It was a cool little like Pride stash busty project, and Rose Knitwear is not Dutch, but she lives in Amsterdam, so I figure support local. So I've done that. So that brings us to the end of the finished objects. Let me go to the work in progresses. This next one is getting big. I bought this cone, which is never ending, from Woolyknit on a sale like a year ago. And it is the color Zest in their British fingering, British 4-ply, something like that. And I bought it simply because it's obnoxious, and I thought it would make a great accent color, or maybe like a good summer top or something like that. And I think actually, in terms of stash, having like this and maybe like a bright orange or like a highlighter pink, that sort of thing, that could be really cool to like have as accents in future designs. Maybe? I'm not really quite sure. Anyway, I have a lot of this. I've been trying to use it up. And then I also bought years ago, not years ago, but maybe like a year and a half ago when I was in a different place, this Holst Supersoft in Princess. I love this color. It is such a cute little pink. You know what I did? I bought it at the beginning of last year because I did the Aurora Cabin Shawl in the beginning of 2023, and I used this pink, loved it, bought a couple extras, like I'll swatch for this, I'll make something with it, and then like my whole stash grew. So I don't really need this to like make a project with or something. I also had a weird amount. So, but I had the perfect amount for a shawl. I am not a big shawl knitter, but like the Boneyard Shawl, sometimes you just need something in between projects that has a free pattern that is super simple and you can just knock out really quick. And that's what this was. I was waiting for yarn for like 3 projects or something like that to come in, and I ended up not doing one of the projects, but I just needed more stuff. So I needed something that was like, no pressure, let's get it done. And I chose the Sugar Shawl by Lemon Kid. This was suggested by my friend Austin, who knit one himself. He is a self-professed lazy knitter and does not want to do anything super challenging, which is fine because that's what his like mode is. But I hate when people say like, oh, I could never do a garment. You know, it's like, yes, you can. If you can knit a shawl, especially some of the Stephen West shawls, you can knit a garment. But this is it. This is the color combo, and I really like it. It's like, I don't even look at the pattern anymore. It's quite big now, actually. So I had like 2 and some balls of this princess, and what you need to do is 7 stripes of the slip, and this is just like a mosaic stitch, so you only work one color at a time. That's not really like stranded color work, so you can just work it back and forth, and you need 7 of these. So what I have done is I'm on my last ball, and I think it will get me only 1 more of these purple stripes and 1 more of these stripes because I just weighed it, and I'm at the point where I need to start the purple again. But the idea is to use as much as possible. So if I also have enough to do 2 more stripes, then I will do 2 more stripes because I want to stay in pattern but get that out of my stash. Remember, that's like the goal, and so far we're really like, we've gotten 2 balls out, which is great. Well, a ball and some. Doesn't matter. Point being is, after this, then there's like, you know, let's say this is like the last stitch section, then there's like a yellow garter stitch section that's the same width of this, and then what I'll do is my Icelandic bind off again because I think that's perfect. Holst Supersoft discussion again. I swear I've sold so much Holst Supersoft from that one video that I have, and then just in general talking about it all the time. It is great for a shawl like this, a scarf. If you want to use it for a garment, I would suggest holding it with something, either like in terms of stranded color work, or you could hold it with a fluff or a lace, or hold it double. I find that like the cuffs and hems are a little flimsy, but otherwise I think that it's really good. I really have like a cone that I want to use with some alpaca, but also it's like my go-to color work yarn. So take that for what it is. But because of the spinning oil, you can see as it's knitting up, it doesn't look the best. It looks a bit crinkly, it looks a bit uneven, it looks a bit like tortured. But once I block this thing, it blooms so much. So like color work when you're working with Holst is just like, I don't know about this, but then once you wash it and you use your dish soap, it just goes and like it comes this beautiful fabric. So I think that this will be like a really cozy, just purple triangle of an obnoxious shawl, and I'm nearly done with it. I should finish it soon, but yeah. So this is this, and for the record, you may or may not see this stuff again. I don't show everything that I knit, and sometimes if it doesn't fit in the theme, you don't see it finished until much later, or not at all. Usually it's much later, but maybe my next stash busting video. So there's this. So that is my sugar shawl. I really like it. Following on from that, when I purchased that yellow woolly knit cone, I did it because I had, which one is it? I bought 3 cones. What are we looking at here? 3 cones of this rust tan, and that I made my polder hoodie sample with, and it really took like 2 and a bit cones. So I had like 1 mostly full. These are 400 grams. It was probably like 350 or more grams of yarn on the cone, and I was like, I want to use this, but I don't know what to use 400 grams of a worsted weight. But I know that if I have 2, that I can make a sweater from it. So this is the Woolyknit British Aran in rust tan. This is, it's I would say more rustic yarn. I hate using that term because I think that it means a lot of different things to more people, but it definitely is not merino soft. You can see, maybe you can see it's more loosely spun. It has a lot of those hairs sort of sticking out, and it's that type of yarn. It's an okay yarn, but it's not merino soft. But I have recently been in discussions with Woolyknit for something, which is later to come on the channel, and I sent a bunch of yarn, and I was like, well, if I'm getting yarn anyway, then I would like another one of these cones so I can make a sweater out of it. I've been talking about this for forever. So they sent me this cone, which is great. It's the same color, but I don't know if this is showing up on camera. Oh yeah, I think you can see it. They are definitely different dye lots, which makes sense because I bought this one end of 2022? 2023? I don't even know when. I bought this a while ago, and then this one is new. So you can see one's a little bit, I would say, more orange, and one's a little bit more darker and red. And I was like, okay, what are we going to do with this? And first, I started out with the pattern. So because I don't really wear this color, I was like calling my brother, and I was like, guess what? You get a free sweater. We're going to knit something up for you. What do you want? And I gave him 10 different choices. He chose the Gib II by Andrea Mowry, which is kind of cool because I've never knit an Andrea Mowry pattern before, but she and her husband met in East Lansing, Michigan, which is where my parents met. And I don't know, there's like this little Michigan connection. If you want to know what I originally sounded like, It was like her voice on a tired day and on her podcast, except my accent was a little stronger. So that's what I used to sound like. I don't anymore, but that's the thing. Anyway, 2 different dye lots, Gib II, what's going to happen? Well, because the Gib has so much texture, I figured what we're going to do is we're just going to alternate the colors. So like it's one row of the one cone, one row of another cone. So they're both attached to this project, which is crazy. And it is a top-down raglan. Originally, the Gib was a more female presenting pattern, or designed to a more female size chart. And it was done for Brooklyn Tweed. And then the Gib II was a like male version of that, I guess, by popular request. And this is what I have with it. And you cannot tell that I'm using almost 2 different colors, depending on the light you do. I have split for the sleeves and started on the body. And as you can see, it's quite textured. And what that does is, especially with like the pearl bumps, it makes it so that like I'm not going to get like a line of color, and that they really go together pretty well. Maybe on the back you can tell, maybe not. But I mixed in with the texture, the 2 different ones. But for the ribbing, I'm just using, I think, the dark color because I have more of it. So that's what I did for that. It has this cute little like shoulder detail. And the Woolyknit, because of how it's spun and all this stuff, is really sort of flat cable, but I'm not mad at that. And like same thing with the texture. It's not really like popping out, but it's still squishy and quite nice. This is a top down in the round raglan. That's what my brother chose. I gave him all like easier patterns to choose from so I could like whip through it a little bit quicker. This is a week's-ish worth of work, maybe a little bit more. I changed the short rows in the neckline because of the stitch pattern. The short rows are all within the ribbing. This is the back. You can see that that's quite long. Can you see? And in the front, it's much shorter. So the short rows to raise the neck were all in the back ribbing. She used wrap and turns, and I switched it to German short rows. And that way I also shifted them around a little bit, like not enough to make a difference with the shape, but like to get the short rows on the short row turns on a purl side that was flipping out, because I think that my knit sides look a lot better and that like the short row turns can be hidden a little bit better in the purl side. So I did German short rows for that. Normally I would not do the collar directly into the body. That is because they stretch out immensely. I just don't, it's not for me. What I probably would have done had this been for me is cast it on with a German twisted cast on, recalculated the neck like backwards so the short rows like built, and then you do the ribbing. But I just was too lazy. I couldn't be bothered, and it will be fine. I can tell him he does crochet, so I could tell him to put in like a crochet reinforcement for this maybe, or some elastics if he needs it later on. The thing also with my little rant. So if you don't do that, you have no structure, and then the garment weighs it down over time and things expand. If you cast on provisionally, and then you have the collar, then that's like a seam that stays there and it doesn't like grow as much. So it makes the longevity of a sweater better. And also when you're doing top down, you know how knitting's like a V? You have them like this when it's top down, which just think of that like in terms of a shape of a body is like it gets wider as it goes to the hips. So the way that the stitches are oriented, in addition to the collar just being like ever growing, is it can really expand, and then this collar can really stretch over time and make it like a less wonderful garment. So like, you know, all these people that have to put elastic into their knitting and stuff, that's why. It's because the garment's not constructed really to like last a long time. That's part of the reason why I like seams. That's a big deal. So anyway, that's neither here nor there for this. I'm just knitting the sweater basically to pattern, because he gave me his measurements, which were pretty similar to the ones on the pattern. And right now I'm on Body Island, but it's gotten to the point where it's easy. It's just easy. I don't have to think about it, essentially, which is quite nice. So the sugar shawl needs to go, so this can be my easy project. And I think that's all I have to say about the Gib II at the moment. So we will conclude this is what I have been knitting with my stash and stash busting, and let's talk about some of the things. We're going to shift because I am moving into designing more and trying to get like things up and running to at least pay for itself, if not generate some sort of income for me, because as we discussed, the job market's not budging at all and I'm going crazy. So I've had some things happen which are great momentum, but it also means that now I have a little bit more professional deadlines and stuff. So I had the Knitting for Olive test knit, which I think is due mid-month. I have the kip sweater test that I'm going to be doing. I cannot start that sweater until I finish this one, the body of this one, let's say. So I have yarn coming in from Portugal once again, so it will take a while for that one. Also, I have until mid-September to finish that, so I just need this off my needles, and it's on worsted weight, so it should go pretty fast. But like I told myself, no new sweater cast on until this is done. So this needs to be done. And that is a little bit more of an intense like stitch pattern to go through and stuff like that. And we'll discuss more about it later. But so that's going to take a bit of time. I have another magazine that I'm designing for, which I'm not sure how much I can say or show. But that's really cool, but it's more of a challenging construction for me, and I need to figure it out first. And that is due at the beginning of November. I have another one due mid-December, but that's a me deadline for it, so I'll share that with you. And then I would like to put out some accessory patterns, at least one in August, or at least get tested by like August, and then one in like September, October, I think. And then I should have a design coming out October, something like that. Regardless, I like busy like with actual things that I have to do, so like less knitting for fun. I think there will be less stash busting because I usually knit like accessories or small projects with my stash, and I don't use it for design per se. I use it for swatching in terms of design, but I don't like design with my stash or knit like a full project. So we'll have to see how frequent these videos are in coming up. All that to say, I don't know when my next video is. I have some plans about what content for different things will be, but we're not quite there yet. And yeah, so it might be a while, but I will still be knitting. If you want to follow my stuff, my stories for Instagram are the most up to date. The Instagram feed kind of has a backlog of content, which is great, which means that I can just like post and I don't have to do so much. So this stuff will get there eventually if you're wondering what's happening. But in the meantime, take care of yourself, be kind to yourself, be kind to others, and enjoy the summer if you're having it, which we are not. And I will talk to you guys later. Bye.